Hey guys, just want to do a quick video. I'm putting my dash back in my car. Currently, the dash looks like this. It's not existent. So I'm gonna unclip my zip-tied, zip-tied gauge cluster. And then I'll have to cut some pieces out of the dashboard so it'll fit around the roll cage here. Especially these parts right there in that corner. There's no way it's gonna go back in unless I start cutting. So I'll go ahead and start cutting that. This will be another kind of time-lapse video, so please enjoy. I'll try to stop here and there if there's anything specific I want to comment on. So I'm not exactly sure exactly where I should cut. There's next to the door and the windshield will need some clearance room. So I think I'm just gonna start there. I believe that would be this piece right here. So I'm going to cut around this. Probably just try to do a straight line from here to here. See how that works out on both sides. But I am guessing I'm gonna have to cut out at least something around here as well. So let's see what we can do. All right, so I've cut off both sides to be just straight up from this original cut. So let's see how it fits. There's just no way that I'm gonna be able to get this in here. So according to the rules, you can modify anything below the trim, the middle trim strips. So I believe what I'm gonna have to do is just cut straight across this line and back for both sides and basically take out this entire piece, which will make it easier for me. I kind of don't want to do it. But I think it may just be necessary. Let's see how it goes. Got it out for the third time. So what I'm planning on doing here, since this is where the trim piece usually goes, I'm going to, instead of cutting it exactly right there, I'm gonna follow this natural, this formed line and just cut straight across and see if that makes my life far easier. I know it will because this piece is pretty gigantic. It's too bad because I kind of wanted to retain this. I might attempt in the future to see if I can retain it a little better. Can't really worry about it too much. I really need to get this in. I've been delaying it for too long. So here it goes. We're making progress. This is all cut. I just need to cut this part and this part. I'll be ready to try again. This side is all done. That is cut through. Just this last line. Alright, the dash has now been cut. I think it actually looks pretty good. Took a little bit of time, not too bad though. And let's see if I can get this in any easier, or if I still have more cutting to do. Okay, so I think in addition to cutting what I've already cut, I'm gonna have to cut this piece right here, just enough space that I can wrap, and that'll give me, you know, another extra 6 inches on at least the right side. I'm really not sure, but that seems to be correct so far. Then again, I am pretty in the dark here, so there's a lot of space that needs to be cleared here on the other side as well. Now that I'm taking a closer look at this, thinking that this hole will actually be used for this bar, not this one, just because of the distance between the back of the dash and the windshield. How I'm gonna do that, I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna cut this yet, but I do need to take it out for a 4th time. But at least it's a lot easier to get in and out than it was before. It was so crazy. All right, let's get to it. This has been really it's been a pain in the you-know-what. It has been a struggle, but I think I finally succeeded. I may have cut off more than I really needed to, but it's pretty hard to say. I mean, that was really challenging. So I've cut off a good chunk here, just almost like it's kind of, I cut off this part to the gray and then this part all the way to the end of, almost the end of the vent space. This is where the right passenger vent goes. And this was the very last part I cut in order to squeeze this chunk in between the cage and then this part around this bar. There were some snaps and crackles in order to kind of bend this around this bar finally, but I just really didn't want to cut off any more than I already had. Basically the only things keeping this on now are this bolt here, this one here, and then there's one right in the center. You won't be able to see it, or maybe you can actually, like right there, there's a little pin that slides back. I've already snapped it into place. It's relatively secure. This thing is super floppy. But I'm hoping I can just put that little vent in here, and this, the airbag cover, and then I'll be happy for an undetermined amount of time. So yeah, I'm happy it's finally in. All right, I know it's really dark and it's probably almost impossible to see me right now, but the dash is finally in. Final thoughts are basically, I'm glad that I finally got it in because it's been such a project, a monster of a project that I just knew was going to be a little bit frustrating, but it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it'd be. I cut a little bit more than I probably needed to, but it's also really hard to tell exactly where I need to cut it, you know? It's really hard with this whole cage in here to like tell, okay, if I put it in this way, in this angle, can it clear the bar here and this one and the other side? So tomorrow I'm gonna get a little bit more video telling, like showing you exactly where I cut in case you have to do this yourself. And I am very happy. I mean, yes, I did cut more here than I really needed to, especially up here. But it just kind of seemed like there wasn't going to be much way to get it in without cutting there. If anything, it still helped me. I did cut everything below the ridge line here. I kind of feel like maybe I shouldn't have jumped the gun by cutting all of this section out, because I'd like to kind of have a more functional window wiper, like, you know, that isn't completely loose. I know I could just like drill no holes or something and do something makeshift, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not that upset about it. These will go away eventually anyway. It is kind of silly that I have this whole thing here and I only need these 4 or 5 buttons, but it is what it is. Getting everything back in was fine. I did chop off a couple of marks, a couple of pieces from the vents on both passenger and driver side. You can't really see it, but I had to, yeah, you can actually kind of see it right there. I chopped that section off from the vent. It does look kind of like loose to me. We'll see how it really does when I'm actually driving it around. And the other side is not quite as loose. I'm glad I didn't shave too much off of this piece of the airbag cover. I don't know why, I just really like the way it looks and like how nicely it fits in there. Yeah, but it looks pretty decent, and I'll get this a little more cleaned up eventually. But yeah, I basically cut the same section out there. There really doesn't have to be much cut from the actual airbag cover. I really like the way it looks with the dash back in. On the center, it feels pretty dang solid. It's nice to have like a nice gauge cluster again. Time to drive home. It's been a long day. I wish the sun wouldn't have to go down so early in November, end of November, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah. So hopefully this will be helpful to anybody else out there. I'll update you guys a little bit more tomorrow. All right, just wanted to get a quick close-up shot of exactly where I've cut here. So I ended up cutting maybe a little too much. This is the passenger side. I cut all along the bottom here. Actually, it's really just this part. This is already cut from the factory, but cut straight across this line. And then I cut some extra around here. This kind of ridge here, I put the vent back in. If I were to do this again, I would probably, it's really hard to say because it is kind of a huge pain to really get this in here, but I'd probably, the biggest thing I would do is just cut a line that goes straight roughly from here up and then continues straight back to the windshield. I wouldn't have cut forward like I did. I would have just cut straight forward and kept this line going on both sides. And I maybe even would have left the center console piece in as well. That's kind of tough to say because it is really challenging as it is to get it in there. Because you'll have the shifter in the way and you'll have the, it probably won't really interfere much with the handbrake, but I did what I could. Same thing on this side. I think I would go without trying to cut as much here as I could. I probably would have gone just straight across if possible. Either way, I needed to cut out this vent, or this section going towards the vent. And as you can see, it's pretty loose now because there's just not a lot of structure to it. What I'll end up probably doing is probably zip tying it to the back so it'll kind of just stay in place a little bit better. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet. And again, same thing. Straight up from here and keep that line going all the way through the back instead of cutting this angled line like I did at the very beginning. Again, it's hard to really tell that at the beginning, and overall I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But yeah, just hopefully this will help out anybody who wants to do this in the future. If this has helped, please do thumbs up, subscribe.